Here I am, a radiant being of light, in his own front room on a Sunday afternoon, or is it a Saturday? I can't quite remember. These Christmas holidays have been going on so long, I've lost track. And here's how I really look. Hi there, Word of Gord. And as promised, some more on retrieving the victims of violent crime. And I've done quite a bit of this in the past, and I promised I would get back to this after the last video on the California victims. I did a lot of work of this nature in 2000, 2001 when I was learning how to do it. And, you know, you study people's books, you take courses using meditation tapes, as I did with the Hemisync tapes from the Monroe Institute and the books of Bruce Moen. And you learn from others' experiences. And the meditation tapes allow you to suspend your disbelief and move your consciousness beyond your body. And as long as you can put your doubt in your back pocket and your skepticism, other side of the room would be a good place for it, you can learn to do this too. So let me have a look at my notes, and I will read you probably in two parts. It looks like I've got enough material for two videos here. And give you some examples of the various types of retrievals that can be accomplished with victims of violent crime. Now, in that summer of 2000, I got quite interested in the murder-suicide phenomenon. Usually married couples, sometimes couples and the families, where they become so distraught, so messed up that murder-suicide seems like the only way out of their financial or their emotional or their legal difficulties. And tragic as it is, it's for a retriever like me, it's just one more example of the possibility of an earthbound ghost, of a soul who's going to get stuck here unless somebody moves them on, somebody like me. And as I've said before, this happens a lot. There are many, many earthbound ghosts, and of course there are many television shows dealing with this now. This is no longer an esoteric matter. It's a matter of common knowledge, but the retrieval work is still a bit of a mystery to many people. So I'd like to contribute to the public's understanding of this. So I got in contact with one DR, as I will call him, from a town not far from where I live. And apparently he had shot himself, but not his wife or his children, in the midst of a contentious divorce situation. And I was curious because, you know, normally they wreak vengeance on others as well as themselves, and this man didn't. So I found him at Focus 23, which is Monroe speak for that boundary area between this world and the next. And I introduced myself, and I got the impression he was hanging around his old town and his old home. Hadn't moved on at all. And I told him that people were very concerned about him, his neighbors and people around town, because they thought he was such a nice guy. And they were so sad that he'd taken this route. And I, of course, got that from reading the newspaper. But for him, that was not so. People did not give a shit, his family especially. He was moving out and nobody cared, kids included. Well, they cared now. And I think those words will convey his attitude for you. We discussed relationship breakups and the difficulty of them, and I spoke a little about some of my own experiences, and that helped to bond us. You know, a little sympathy always helps. A little true sympathy. And this man had no history of threats or violence, I might add. And of course, I knew that from the papers once again. And I suggested to him that we might have a look at the afterlife and I could take him there. And his response was, no, he was not ready to go. And him, a suicide? I could see that he was feeling that, the heaven world was not for him, that he wasn't worthy. Whether he actually believed it or not, I couldn't say. I told him that wouldn't matter. Being a suicide, no one would judge him. No police, no courts, no social workers, anything of that nature. The only one that would judge him would be himself. And that did seem to surprise him, as it surprises many people. They don't really believe you. They're convinced they're going to be judged. And so I offered to take him there and let him see for himself. And for whatever reason, he quickly agreed. I asked him to give me his hand, which he did, and it was a big, flashy hand in mine, which was interesting. Just that experience of my little hand in his small hand was kind of fun. And we floated above his hometown and had a beautiful view of the bay, which his town is close to. Bay on a sunny day. Things looked just lovely. And together we marveled at God's handiwork, which I believe was a phrase I used. And we hovered there for a while, just being part of the scene. And I also suggested to him that he could think on this image if he wished to return from the afterlife to this plane. And it's always good to have little markers for your trips. And we closed our eyes. I executed the intention, as I've said before, to move to the area in Focus 27 that we call the park, which is indeed a lovely park, large, beautiful. And he seemed to warm to it immediately, felt quite at home. I told him a bit about it, how it had been created, and said he should walk about, meet people, and not be shy. And I laughed and said, everyone's dead here, not just you. And he seemed a little shocked, but then a smile started to appear. And he saw some children that were playing nearby. I think that made it all seem a little more friendly and easeful. I did mention how his funeral in the next couple of days would pull him magnetically, as it often does. And he should not resist that pull, just go with it and see what happens. Because resisting the pull can actually be tougher than going with it. And what can I say as I'm reading my notes here? He seemed pleased that there was actually an afterlife that was as nice as this. So that helped. And no one came to meet us. Sometimes, quite often, get people will come and meet you, greeters, as they say. No one came this time. I gave him a big hug, my head on his chest. Again, he was a big man, I'm a short fella. And then he wanted to shake my hand, and which I did, and I smiled and floated off. I like to float off. It creates a powerful visual impression for the person you're retrieving. And I left him there, and I'm sure he was okay. Although I have no further evidence to say that he wasn't okay, but I suspect that he was. About a month after that, I did another retrieval, somewhat more tragic, somber. A man, obviously disturbed, stabbed his entire family and himself. And they were found in their home, I guess, a couple of days later, and I read about it in the paper. And was quite curious to see how this would pan out, because it was obviously violent. And sorry to frustrate you in any way, but I see we're coming to the end of our 10 minutes, so I will end this, and we'll, ooh, listen to that, frog in the throat. We'll come back with part 2 in a few moments, and I will continue being a being of light, or just like this, or shall I be more, oh, look at that, that's even brighter. Ooh, lovely effects, eh? Ooh, special effects, and it's just the sunshine. Wow, what fun. Anyway, we'll talk again in a few minutes.